Okay. Aloha, everybody. This is Dr. Summer Nicole with Dr. Michelle Wolford. I've been so excited about this interview. Michelle is one of my very best friends, and I've known her for a really long time. And honestly, she's just one of the smartest women I know. And so I really wanted to start off these expert interviews with, people that I feel like have information that's really relevant for us right now, like in this pandemic. And I felt really called to do, to really talk about like root chakra and safety, like this piece that just seems up for the collective. So I thought no better person to talk about all of this stuff that we're going to dive into with Michelle. I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on her end. She lives in Encinitas, California, and has been awarded the best naturopathic doctor of Encinitas. She successfully runs a private multidisciplinary practice there, treating children and adults for a variety of acute and chronic conditions, and she has patients all over the world. She's been a guest speaker on several podcasts at colleges, medical schools, spoke for Natural Living Speakers Tour, and has been a guest writer for the Journal of Alternative Medicine. She has traveled the world collecting information for healing experience, working with top medical doctors, shamans, and gurus. She has a remarkable way, and I can attest to this, of intertwining the Western medical training with her knowledge of all of the Eastern medical training, and she dives into a variety of, plant medicines or botanicals, you could say, herbal essences, energy medicine, nutrition, body movement, meditation, breath work, and spirituality. And honestly, to me, she's just one of the most like tapped in naturopathic doctors and friends that I know. And I'll leave the link for her website at the end of this, but it's drmichellewolford.com. So welcome, Michelle. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So yeah, I was going to start these interviews off, with other topics, and in light of this current pandemic, I thought let's just start with what feels most relevant for people right now. So Michelle and I kind of chatted about what we would like to cover today, and a lot of it is around, the power of the mind and subconscious programming and vibration and frequency and your immune system and root chakra and all of this stuff. So I feel like maybe let's start, Michelle, with how are you feeling about how this COVID-19 is being delivered to us via the media?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely struggle with that. I mean, I feel like the media is supposed to be a very non-emotional, factual mode of delivering information. And, I've kind of been flipping around different news channels, so I have a better sense of what my patient population, because I do treat people all over the world, like what people are being exposed to. And it's challenging because I think it is really shifting people into a deep sense of fear and uncertainty. And I mean, COVID-19 is to be taken seriously, but I don't think it's to be feared. There's definitely a subset of my population that are in my at-risk category that I have a closer watch on, and I'm making sure that I'm really supporting them. And, we're really diving into the ins and outs of their health. And for sure, we're seeing even younger people that you wouldn't suspect contract COVID and have issues with maybe fighting it, but there usually is an underlying reason, right? And so that's what I love about naturopathic medicine, is because we focus so much on assessing somebody's underlying reasons, and so that you can come into contact with any particular bug in the environment and your body knows how to mount a proper response and how to respond and how to keep you safe and in balance. And so I'm not a fan of how the information is being delivered. I struggle with that, just from the standpoint that I think people are afraid to leave their homes. Like, they're afraid to just step outside and have, fresh air, to talk to their neighbor across the lawn. And, there is so much unconscious programming. I mean, even if you're not really watching the TV, but like you hear it in the background, maybe you refuse to watch the TV, but your partner or your housemate or whomever wants to listen, you're still picking up on things. And so what people are hearing subconsciously is COVID equals death. If I get COVID, I will die, as if it's this 1-to-1 ratio or an if if then, situation. And that's just not true. And without going too spinny into the science behind it all, I mean, we know that this particular bug can make a happier home inside somebody's body when their inflammatory markers are high. And interleukin-6 is a very particular inflammatory marker that goes high when we're in a state of anxiety or catastrophizing. And so, just by being in a state of anxiety is actually changing our internal environment, where if we came into contact with this bug, it could maybe find more of a home inside of us, and we would be more challenged to defend. And then of course there's the whole like psychosomatic aspect of it. A lot of people are so scared right now. I mean, I'm getting a lot of phone calls of, I coughed, do I have it? Or, I feel anxious, and anxiety decreases, breath function and can lead to shortness of breath. And I appreciate the phone calls because I want to be able to be a different voice for these people, for my patients and so forth. But I wish that the media was delivering a mixture of positive information or I shouldn't say positive and negative, but just factual information, less shaming of people, that are choosing to step outside and go for a walk. And then also like understanding the details behind who is getting sick, because, there's a statistic I read that it's like almost 1,100 people die a day in the United States from heart disease alone. And so, it's like, are these people like dying because that's what they were originally dying from? Or is it COVID specific? Like, why are we now lumping everything into one category and making more people more afraid that is going to be their fate, as if there's no hope, right? So.
Yeah. What do you feel like is like the main myth that you could bust about what's actually being delivered to the like mainstream population?
Yeah. Okay. So the main myth that I could bust to the mainstream population, I mean, in a way, it kind of goes along with what I just said. I mean, the people that are increased risk are people that are on ACE inhibitors. This particular bug binds to the ACE2 receptor site. If you're on a drug and your doctor told you, don't worry, take this drug for the rest of your life, you'll be fine. Well, it just so happens that now that phrase no longer applies. Like, I mean, I've never felt people, I mean, I have no problem with Western medicine. I practice Western and Eastern. I love it both. But to rely on one thing for the rest of your life without diving into why you got there to begin with and what's happening on a deeper level, I think is a disservice to your own human evolution and also your own human defense mechanisms, whether that be connecting in with a person, a bug, no matter what the situation may be. And so, the people that I'm actually, oddly enough, even my patient population that has upper respiratory issues like chronic asthma, mast cell dysfunction, it seems like they are not responding as negatively if they come into contact. It's really more people that have diabetes, who have heart disease, who have some sort of like T cell dysfunction. So that would be like autoimmune that is not controlled. People that are on immunosuppressives, chronic antibiotic use, things like that. So for the general population, I guess my Mythbuster is still the same thing, which is it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. Like, I don't want people to be afraid of life. I think being afraid of living is a death within itself. And so I think this is really an opportunity to say, okay, this is a situation we're living in. How can I make it better, the best situation possible? What are those things I've always wanted to dedicate my time to that I said I didn't have time to do? Maybe that's a daily medicine practice, meditation practice, or starting to invest in your physical health and connecting in with different practitioners that could lead you to a different state of health and well-being. Maybe it's learning how to cook and starting to go organic and really investing in food as medicine. So there's so many different things you could do for your overall health and well-being. And now is this prime time. So I would say just take advantage of this time. Don't find yourself wishing that you did take advantage of it.
Yeah, I'm finding it to be like such a beautiful time. Like once, especially like when you get past the first week of like having to slow down, because I've done this before in my life, where your mind's just so used to all the doing that you just have to just kind of like be with the monkey mind for that like first week or so. And then like once that starts to slow down and the pace, the rhythm of your body starts to slow down, I'm like finding myself cooking more and like gardening and like things that I wouldn't normally, you know, have been doing. And like 100% really relying on my meditation and yoga practice has been so key like during this time. Cause it's like, I feel like I'll be so good. And all of a sudden I'll feel like this wave, it almost feels like of collective fear or anxiety. And it's really interesting. It was almost like the first week was like fear, and then it was like anxiety, and then this week has felt more like grief to me. You know, it's like, it's really interesting just as this continues to go, and then there's more death that happens. It's almost like we're in like a grief pocket right now is what it feels like to me. And so I feel like it has never been a better time to actually just like go in and like really listen to your body and like what your body needs to deal with this amount of like external chaos. Because it's like we can only take in like so much information a day. So I'm also finding that's really important too, right? Of just like limiting my amount of time of how much information I take in, and really mindful of like who I'm taking that information in from.
Absolutely. I mean, there's just so much information between like Facebook and the media, and I would say that most of it is not 100% accurate. It's, I mean, I guess other myth busters for the healthy population is, watch what you read about what's supposed to be helpful and antiviral and this or that. I mean, I don't think people should all of a sudden be taking 5, 6, 7 different types of antivirals or whatever they're reading online is healthy for you at this point in time. This is not a more is better situation, because you can offset how your T cells and your natural killer cells and all of these immune cells that are supposed to kick in at certain times, you could affect how they function. Like, the body is so wise. I mean, if anything, I would say, as much as I love natural medicine, I mean, I think it is there to shift somebody into balance who's out of balance. Yes, it could be there as protective, but it's also there in a time of acute situations. But to just all of a sudden start taking a bunch of stuff, isn't what I would recommend. I think actually I would say get into a spiritual practice of breathing, because you're now decreasing those inflammatory markers, of relaxing your mind, because even if people don't identify as being, tuned in or energetic or whatever word you want to tag on there, we all are. It's just we have different level antennas. Some people, they spend a lot of time trying to grow their antennas because they want to get a lot of signal from the world around them. Other people have been focused in maybe more of a physical world, and so maybe their antennas are really tiny, and they haven't, grown them as much. And so, but we're all plugged in, and we're all part of the conscious collective. And so whether somebody identifies as being energetically sensitive or not, or psychic or not, or intuitive or not, we all have that in us, and we all are breathing as a human organism or as an earth organism together. So I agree with you. Their anxiety is heightened because they're tapping into the conscious collective, or they're hearing things from the media. So being able to learn how to surrender and to disconnect from all of that, to really connect into a higher power of possibilities, I think is where there's a lot of freedom and true and valuable information for forward movement for every individual.
Mm-hmm. And it feels so important too, because of the mass amount of people that are in that collective fear and anxiety. It feels so important to like, but what if my job is actually just to keep this particular vibration or frequency that isn't that, so that I can send out a ripple, right? That that's the opposite of that, like collective fear and anxiety. And I know you've been doing some great videos lately, live streams, and on Facebook. I think live streams are right. And on affirmations. And so what are some of the affirmations that you gave that could be like, say I think most of the people watching this are going to have some sort of a practice, but like something I've been noticing, like just when I go for a walk, I'll be doing breath work, or for a walk, I'll do mantras. It's almost like I'm making my practices more efficient because there's so much energy to move. So I'm having to like move it and do mind work and breath work at the same time. So it's like, what are some of those? I know you have really good ones, like affirmations to tell the body.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of see it as like three options. So option number one is like if you are, fearful of COVID, or you're just trying to reprogram your brain for a different messaging than what you're hearing everywhere else. Maybe you're not fearful, but you just want to reprogram your brain in a different way. I'll give you an example of that. A short example. There's also like maybe a longer example that I'll give COVID related. And then of course, if somebody's not focused on that, maybe they're focused on something else that they want to either manifest or change or grow abundantly in their life. There could be an affirmation for that. And so I definitely think walking while you can do an affirmation at any point in time. While you're brushing your teeth, you can affirm, as you're eating, you can affirm. And it's really a practice of like presence, right? You could be eating and be like, these nutrients are really healthy and they're going to help keep my body strong and able to fight COVID, right? Or these nutrients are very healthy and they're going to keep me strong and they're going to strengthen my bones. Maybe somebody who has osteoporosis, or these nutrients are going to keep me strong and healthy and keep my mind clear and focused. So you could do it when you eat, when you brush your teeth, when you're walking. It's great too, because, walking actually activates a part of the brain, the amygdala, but so does fear, interestingly enough. So one of the best ways to move fear out of the body is the walking practice. And so if you're walking and activating a part of the brain that also gets triggered by fear, and then you're affirming it, that like, I am safe and I am taken care of, and my body knows how to respond when it comes into contact with the virus, and you're constantly saying that, then if you do come into contact with any virus, whether it's COVID or not, it doesn't mean you won't mount a response. I mean, a response is good. Fever's okay. Getting sick is okay. But, we want to make sure your body knows how to have a proper response and how to control it, right? Have a Th1 cell response and then down regulate when it's supposed to, when it feels like it has it under control. And so to be able to remind your body, like, you know how to do this. You know how to be strong. Like I do this with a lot of my autoimmune patients because their body gets stuck attacking self. And so absolutely. I mean, you could just, again, make it super simple. Like, I'm strong, I'm vital, my body knows how to mount a proper immune response. That would be something simple. Something longer maybe is something that you read, like something that really inspires you and that you can read every morning when you get up or every night before you go to bed, that says like, I am beautiful and I am blessed and I am filled with light, and, whatever resonates with, your own words, right? That resonate deep inside. Because when you're able to match an emotional experience of feeling this like, yes, I am safe, and yes, I am abundant, and you have that emotional impact that matches these words and this visual, you create this triad that becomes so powerful for manifestation. And that could be manifestation of like a new job, or that could be manifestation of maintaining health, or it could be anything.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And how I heard you speak to how I want to touch back on, because I don't think a lot of people hear this about what you just said about it's okay for the body to go to an inflammatory response. It's okay for the body to have a fever, like these types of things that I don't think a lot of people hear. And so how I want to just like for you to just maybe expand on that a little bit, but then also how you've spoken to this as like an immune system upgrade.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, coming in contact with any microbe and your body mounting an appropriate response is literally an immune system upgrade. And what I mean by that is your body is saying, oh, I recognize you, and I'm cataloging you. I see you, I'm responding to you, and I'm cataloging you. And so that if I ever come into contact with you again, I know exactly how to respond. And so if you can think about like a human experience, let's say you go to a party and you get there and I don't know, somebody says something mean and it really hurts you. And it's like, how much are you gonna allow that to destroy you? Like, you will be affected, and that's okay, because you learn something from that emotional impact. However, what do? You go home and you say, how can I strengthen myself so that when I go to the next party and I see that same person and they try to say the same thing, I'm less affected, I'm less impacted, because I've now cataloged who you are, how I'm supposed to respond to you. And so it creates this internal sense of strength. So it could be related to people or employees or a virus, right? And so that is what happens is having a response is just information. That's your body saying to you, like, okay, we came into contact with something and I'm now mounting a response. I'm going to get a little bit hot because I gotta heat things up so we can break this down, so we can change the environment so this bug can't survive. It doesn't belong here. And, and then being able to sweat it out. That means now you're eliminating that toxic load so that it doesn't stay inside of you, so you don't get achy, so that these inflammatory markers, often known as cytokines, which is more what we're hearing in the media, doesn't get stuck and flood our bloodstream, which then, worst case scenario, and it happens to like 1 in a million people. That's not a true statistic, but I just want to let people know that it doesn't happen very often. But then, if it does flood the blood supply and then it floods an organ system, that organ system can shut down, and then sure, end result could be death. But we're talking very rare here. I mean, a colleague of mine was doing a talk on COVID, and she was like talking about all these statistics, and it's like more people get struck by lightning than get COVID. And I know we're hearing a lot of it, so it seems like everybody's getting it and the numbers are rising every day, and they are. But the question is, like, that's just people testing positive. That's not that every single person that tests positive is having the same end result. So yes, getting a fever is good. Like, let it happen. Let the body run its course. We do actually know COVID in particular, you cannot take Advil, ibuprofen, any sort of COX inhibitor, because it affects that whole angiotensin-renin pathway, which the virus is attacking. So, making sure that you're doing either natural, like feverfew, or if you're going to do something more pharmaceutical, just make sure it's not, Advil. Anyway, so those are some of the things that we have, doing like acetaminophen instead of ibuprofen are some of the things that we're learning. But getting a response is okay. It's the body's way of communicating to you, and getting sick's not a bad thing, because again, it goes back to that analogy of, that means your body said, oh, I did come into contact with you and I'm cataloging this information. I know you now. So I know how to respond to you.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious too, because I remember when I was 15, I had mono and I had a fever of I think it was 105, and I was rushed to the hospital, and so once an hour they'd come in, like putting stuff in my armpits and groins, like ice cloths or washcloths and soaked in ice or whatever. And so I'm curious, is there a certain degree of temperature of fever where you would then want to take action?
Yeah, to me, like when patients and I have this conversation, I always tell them, let it run as high as you're most comfortable with. The likelihood of somebody hitting 105 is very rare. And actually, scientific studies show that damage doesn't really happen until somebody is at 110. And so, and cancer cells can die at 108. And so people get really afraid when it hits about the 103 or goes higher mark. I've had plenty, especially pediatric patients, that if they get into that 103 to 105 range, which I think I've only seen maybe 2 patients in my entire medical history that have actually hit 105. I would say most people end up capping out about 103. So I'm okay with it. It really is to your level of comfortability. But hydration is key. That is the biggest issue, is that people get a really high fever and the body's heating itself up. But in that process, that's very dehydrating naturally. And so then people are not rehydrating, which then, of course, if somebody's dehydrated, like set aside fever, if you're dehydrated, you can affect brain tissue. If you're dehydrated, you can have organ failure. If you're dehydrated, kidneys shut down. So it's less about the heat that I'm more afraid of. It's really making sure somebody's hydrated. And so ideally drinking water is most ideal, with a sprinkle of electrolytes. If you don't have access to that, then I would just do a sprinkle of salt, maybe with like a little dib of honey, so you get a little bit of salt and sugar in there. And then baths are great, temperate baths, so that you're not really like burning up at 104 and then you hop in an ice bath, but maybe like a cooler, more temperate bath. And if that's not altering the fever, sure, maybe you can add a little bit of ice or do cold washcloths. I use herbs to support regulating fevers. So sometimes spiking a fever for a patient who has an issue spiking, or sometimes using herbs to regulate it, like down regulate it if I feel like they've sat in a fever for too long. And those are really like patient specific situations, but hydration is key.
Yeah. And I've learned that lesson before of just drinking water, and like with not really forgetting to put like sea salt in it or whatever, and then getting more dehydrated because I'm just like diluting all of my electrolytes. I've like I've learned that. I really love doing like water with like this, putting this much coconut water in like my big thing of water.
Oh,
And
perfect.
that's been, yeah, I love that. Cause and then you stretch the coconut water.
Right.
It's so yummy. um, and then I have a note on here, Michelle, and I just have vibration / frequency / coherence. So
Yeah.
what could you speak to on that I feel like is relevant?
Absolutely. So, when this is why I love meditation, and there's a lot of ways that you can shift your body into coherence. But if I can just give you a visual, when your cells, let's say this is cell A and cell B, when they're moving together in coherence, doesn't take a lot of energy, right? Everything's in flow, things are really great, and science has shown us that meditation can put us into coherence. Tapping into the healthy conscious collective, right, can keep us in coherence. If you get a bunch of people together, like if you have 6 people walking in a 10 by 10 room in a circle, there's coherence. If you just say everybody move and everybody just scatters, then people are going to start bumping into each other, right? There's no coherence. And so when there isn't coherence in the body, right, so we have cell A and cell B, and instead of moving coherently, let's say they're like this, that utilizes a lot of energy. They're not able to communicate as effectively. And so that creates a lot of inflammation in the body. And so a high functioning immune system is going to function coherently. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for practices that put us into coherence with ourself, with our external environment. So that could be people or nature. And with ourself, it's also our thoughts, right? It's how we move through the day, how we think through the day, how we connect in with things through the day. And externally, it's how we, move with people that we're engaging with, how we connect in with the environment. That's, seasonal living. So like matching your sleep wake cycles with like the sun, and, more people are up and energized during the summer and they sleep more during the winter. And, we as a human species have been defying the laws of nature. I mean, we really have. Like we've got Wi-Fi in our bedroom, we're up till 1 o'clock in the morning, we're in front of computers all the time, and so we're getting all of these like electrical inputs, and we're putting things inside of our body that maybe are not, from nature. And, we have really been defying the laws of nature, which have been challenging our system. And so most people are not living in a true state of coherence. And so to be able to do these practices, these self practices, or maybe group practices, like with your, women's group, I mean, that's a great way to shift, a group of women, a conscious collective, into coherence together. And then that, like a heartbeat, ends up moving out. It's like a ripple effect into the community, and it shifts the coherence in the community, and then in the earth, and then it just expands, And so to live a high vibrational or high quality or a high immune function or low inflammatory life requires coherence. And this is a scientific fact. So, and however you find coherence, great, that's amazing. Like, I'm not saying that one way is better for you than the other. Like, everybody has a different way of finding that coherence, but we definitely know that meditation is a great way. And then connecting in with a group that can establish coherence together through mind-body practices.
Right. And the power of the mind is so key here, right? Because it's like you're either going to not have coherence between your mind and your body. You're going to have it or you're not, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, the mind is so powerful. I mean, we can talk ourselves in or out of anything. It is literally the captain of a ship. So I always like to ask my patients, like, who do you want to be the captain? Do you want to be the captain, like really connect in with a higher, consciousness and be the captain? Or do you want the fear to step in and say, okay, I'm going to rule today. I'm going to be the captain. And we all have those moments, right? Those glitches where fear does come in and it starts to take over, or other emotions or other behaviors. But that's the joy of this human experience, is we get to continuously be evolving and challenging ourselves to alter these patterns for a higher vibrational living, for more abundant living, for more connected living to the truth of who we want to be and how we want to give back and what we want to experience here while we're on earth.
Mm-hmm. Beautifully said. Yeah. And this is a good segue into leading into a bit of the root chakra stuff that's up for pretty much everybody, it seems like, which is because and you and I were talking on the phone the other day about the emotions that the root chakra hold is fear and stability, right? And
Yep.
so I'd love for you, yeah, to just let's like segue into speaking about the root chakra and how this is up for people right now, with people just feeling unsafe, like feeling unsafe in their environment, in their communities, perhaps in their own body. And yeah, we'll start there.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything that we've either been willing to look at or everything that we haven't been willing to look at, we are being challenged to look at now. And there's no running and hiding anymore, you know? And that's what's happening. And so everybody is being challenged in a different way. For some people, it's a fear of death. For some people, it's the death of their loved one. For some people, it's their finances, because a lot of people are out of work right now. For some people, it's maybe they struggle, they've been struggling with their partner, but everybody goes separate ways for their 9 to 5 job, and they go separate ways for dinner obligations, and they never really have to address their relationship. Maybe it's a behavioral issue with the child. I mean, I don't know, everybody's situation is so incredibly different. And so yes, I think you think about the energy centers, right? And so, if that bottom energy center, that foundation, the root chakra, the most primal one, we're asking that the world is asking us to redefine it. And so it's getting shaken up. It's being disrupted. It's being disrupted because the only way to truly break an energetic pattern, to break a habit, especially one that does not serve you, is to shake it up. And so we are all being shaken up. We're being shaken up so that we can pop out of these unconscious thought patterns that hold us in place, that are preventing us from growing, so that we can actually come up with new ways of thinking, new ways of being, and new ways of living. And so that foundation, it's like the foundation to a home. It is there to resemble stability, but if it wasn't built correctly, it could also be very unstable. And so you can only imagine what a home on an unstable foundation will do. It will fall, it will crack, and maybe not initially, but eventually. But a home on a strong foundation can make it through a hurricane, a tornado. It can make it through just about anything. And so that is what we're being asked, is to redefine, to repave, to redesign what our foundation is. And so the fear that we're feeling is great. It's primal. I mean, it is asking us to face that fear and to learn, as if our emotions are a compass, not to fall into it, right? I'm not saying to fall into it, but I'm saying if you're feeling it, that's awesome. So meet it. Whatever you're feeling right now, meet it. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's joy, maybe it's, sadness, maybe it's grief, maybe it is this uncertainty. As humans, I would say most people live for certainty. Most people enjoy knowing what comes next. And so it's really the uncertainty that's creating a lot of disrest in people. And so we're being asked to truly step into the unknown. And there's actually, I feel like, certainty in the unknown, because there is certain that there is a possibility of greatness amongst many possibilities. And so for me, I want to connect in with that possibility, right? I don't want to be distracted by all of the other possibilities that are not going to serve me or bring me to where I want to go. And so it's about walking, not with blinders, but almost like shields with little holes, enough where you can see so that you're aware, but to really make sure you're staying focused on where it is you want to go. And so, yeah, the root chakra right now is about really like cultivating the energy, about, grounding into yourself and grounding into what it means to be a part of a community, and to what it means for you as a member of a community. And how does it feel to give back? And what does it feel like to be fearful? And how can you shift into an empowering state, right? A proactive state versus a fight or flight state. And so, yeah, I mean, it's such a beautiful time to recultivate your base, who you want to be, what platform you want to stand on, how you want to be seen, how you want to live, how you want to fly, how you want to plant. Like, this is farming time. Like, farm yourself.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love the way you just expressed that. And also I love how you said meet the fear, because it's like kind of like the motto that I live by with any like what we consider like negative emotion that comes up, it's like actually meet it, because when we're not meeting it, it's like doing the opposite. It's like dissociating, or we're mentally checking out, or we're distracting ourselves, which I feel like is what this time is allowing us to do the opposite of. You know, it's like allowing us to like, okay, well, let's actually draw all of our energy in and consolidate all of our energy. And then let's see what needs to be almost like rewritten of like how I've created this. And then I feel like too, for me, like the fear, anxiety, or any of that is like, it's transmuted very quickly with embodiment and grounding exercises. So I'm curious, what are your favorites that you do? I know my favorites, but what are your favorite like embodiment, like grounding, sort of like root chakra specific exercises when say someone feels overwhelmed with fear, or they feel like they're in an overstimulated nervous system?
Yeah, so there's two different types of nervous systems out there. And one nervous system requires movement. They require using energy to decompress energy. And then there's a type of nervous system that requires harboring their energy to contain it, and then like master the frequency within the container. And so if you're somebody that, you know, you produce a lot of energy, maybe you're extroverted, but there's just, you have a lot of fire, you know, elements, you know, maybe a lot of like vata, you know, kind of like energy, like it could be of value to do some sort of like walking meditation, or bouncing on a trampoline, or doing like qigong movements, where you actually, like a good example would be almost standing with your feet, you know, kind of separated, and just really doing these like hard heel drops so that you can feel your body just up on your toes, and then push down into your heels like you're grounding in, and up on your toes and push down to ground in. And then to be able to stand there in silence. So you expend energy as a settling mechanism, and then you ground in. And so, you know, really imagining like breathing, you know, your breath through the bottoms of your feet. And I happen to be a very visual person, so sometimes I imagine like roots, you know, kind of, you know, like just branching out, and you get all of these roots, or feeling like I'm like, there's this pole that's driving through the center of my nervous system and just kind of planting me in. And so whatever visual feels the most powerful and expansive to you. But people that need to expend energy to settle, I would suggest that expend it, and some sort of like hard movement is good. So, you know, jumping jacks, jumping in place, pounding of the heels, you know, just jumping really, really hard. So any sort of like drum like sound could be really, really beneficial. And then I would ground your feet in. And of course, if you can get your feet in the earth, that would be even better. So like not concrete, not your carpet. I mean, if that's all you have, then that's what you have, you know, deal with what you've got. But I would really try to look for earth-like elements. If you can't lay in the grass or put your feet in the grass, you know, put a plant next to you when you do this exercise, and connect in with the energy of that plant, and even ask that plant to help you out. I know that can seem silly, or an animal. Animals are really great about being grounded. And so just having that intention before you do it. And then for somebody that needs to actually bring their energy in to kind of conserve it and put it like in a container, I really think that creating a sacred space, almost like a cocoony space. So if they are feeling like they're in a state of fear, actually to create a little bit of like closure, and to find things that bring them a level of comfort, and really connecting into that level of comfort. So sometimes that may be like holding on to a gemstone, or wrapping yourself in a particular blanket, and really breathing. Actually breathe the energy out through the top of your head, and then when you breathe the energy back in, breathe it back in and all the way out through the bottoms of your feet. But first you want to exhale up and then bring it down, just because people usually begin to spin, so their energy isn't very grounded. So it's usually already sitting up here anyways, like in that throat chakra, which is where we harbor a lot of our habit patterns. And so, you know, they're being activated by all of those like old memories, unconscious memories, programming, things like that. So the energy is already here. So I like to shoot it out, and then to see myself as this clean vessel where only clean energy comes in, and it moves very gently through each energy center, and then really finds a home in the bottoms of my feet. And I watch it kind of gently moving like magic out of my toes or something. And that's a really great way to just calm the vagus nerve, which will shift you into a parasympathetic or a relaxation state.
Yeah, and I love how you spoke to the two, people respond in different ways in different parts of the nervous system. And I've read this and heard a lot of people talk about this too, about how, with your different types of people, all of us have different types of childhood trauma, right? And so your kind of habitual traumatic response might be to like freeze, right?
Yep.
Or your habitual traumatic response might be to like get really angry and like fight it out or whatever, and so it's like I feel like I love that, because it's really asking people to tune into like, well, what is your response right now, like what's actually happening in your body, and like which way is the energy flowing, and like, and what can you do to bring that into balance, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, we all have different temperaments too. So if I want to go like punch a pillow or punch a punching bag, there shouldn't be personal judgment and there shouldn't be external judgment. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, obviously if you're doing it in a safe manner, I'm not encouraging anybody go, hit an animal or a person or, break your fingers. But if you can, in a healthy manner, like very consciously choose how you want to channel out that energy, that's fine. And then I always like to bring people back in and really then challenge themselves to root in and bring the energy back into them, and knowing that they really are the master of their minds, they are the master of their bodies, the master of their emotions. And an emotional signal lasts for like 6 minutes. So that's the other thing too, is I think our brains, like every time we're in an experience, like it's part of the human condition to think that that's going to just be our life forever. And it's like, sometimes that's a really exciting moment, but sometimes, we feel angry or sad or fearful. And it's like our brain makes us feel as if we'll be that way forever. And I think that's really important too, is just being like 6 minutes, like, and or double it if it makes you feel better, right? Kind of thing. But, if we are willing to, breathe and surrender and do some sort of body mechanics that matches our temperament, that's a really easy way to shift the neurochemistry so that you can calm yourself down. And if you really can't, this is where I love, plants like, Melissa, Passiflora, GABA, well, which isn't a plant, that's more of a neurotransmitter. But, being able to, utilize Earth's elements to really help, tune us in, and then still take the moment to challenge yourself to like learn that habit practice, because I still don't even want people to become dependent on natural substances. I think that there's like so much power in knowing that you can control how you feel in any moment. Like I can be really hyper right now, or I can all of a sudden make myself really tired and go to sleep if I wanted to. Like I've had a very strong practice in controlling how I feel, or not controlling, but knowing how to shift the way I need to feel in certain situations. I can call upon energy when I feel like there's nothing left. I can also totally put myself into silence, quiet, peace, calm, and going to bed, even if I'm not tired. And so it's like, I've practiced that because it's very empowering, because you just never know when you'll need to utilize that skill. Like some people don't have access to supplements right now. Either they're sold out, or they don't have money, or maybe things can't get shipped to their home, or maybe they don't have a doctor, so they don't really know which is going to be the best supplement for them. And so these are like practices, we never know what's going to be available or not available. So I think being able to really connect in with yourself and learn yourself, there's just so much power in that.
Totally. Yeah. Really well said. Yeah. And I feel like too, I want to ask you the same question, but I kind of like what's coming up for me. Cause it's like, I just look at like, well, what's the beauty in all of this, and like what's happening, and like, and this goes a little bit too for what I'm creating here for Soma, this women's collective for mind body healing. It's like is connection, and I feel like it's also the beauty that's coming from this pandemic is connection. And for those of us, and myself included, like I've over the last year have come out of that really habitual pattern of being in a freeze response and like wanting to just isolate myself. And I love how you said you can just call upon the energy that you need, because I feel like I've been doing that more and more of just like, even though like every cell in my body just wants to be like in bed, covers over my head, I'm like can choose to like bring my soul forward, to bring myself into connection. Every single time it moves the energy, and I feel like accelerates the process, right? And it's just like this time feels like it's so juicy for people to actually have the time and the spaciousness to allow themselves to connect, because there was so many women that I connected with, you know, asking like, come join us in Soma, and like this amazing tribe of women. And many women were like, I'm overcommitted, I'm overwhelmed, I can't, you know, they're in that mode. And I feel like this is like such a beautiful opportunity for so many people that, you know, that's typically the excuse. It's like the glorification of busy, you know, is the excuse. And I feel like this is such a beautiful time for people to be like, well, yeah, I actually have the time. You know, that's not an excuse right now. Like, okay, let me connect and see how this goes, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and I just
So
want to clarify, it's like, I mean, I definitely still have my challenging days. Like, I don't want to stand up here like I'm standing on a soapbox. I mean, there's certain things that are super easy for me, but I certainly too have my moments where I'm like, you can do this, Michelle, you can do this, you know, and I'm still coaching myself into, you know, certain things. And so it is a lifetime practice, you know, and it's like, you'll master it and then you're like, yeah, I'm good. Like nothing can touch me. And then something comes along and you're like, you know, and, you know, you call your mom or a friend and you're like, why? And then you're like, wait a second, I can't complain. Like I got the skills, like this is my next level. And so, you know, I think it's important to have fun with it, you know, like play with it, like, you know that you get rewarded by the try, you know, and I don't really like the word try, only because as a kid, my mom used to say, trying is lying. She's like, just do it. You know, it was like, God, you're like the poster child for like Nike, right?
that's what my mom always said. Just do it. Stop complaining. Just do it. And I'm like, stop saying that to me.
But the thing is like, if we do just do it, and it may not be the way we want it to be every single time. Like there are plenty of times I hop into a meditation and I was like, waste of time. You know, I walk away and then I'm like, wait a second, Michelle, why are you judging yourself? You don't know that that was a waste of time. You didn't achieve the exact situation that you wanted to, that exact feeling that was so amazing and powerful the day before. But the fact that you still were committed to showing up, and when you wanted to pull yourself out 12 minutes in because you started to get restless and you stayed, that is success, you know. And then you later on, you realize, you know, how all of those little moments, they build, you know. So I just thought that was important to add in because, you know, as we're having this dialogue, and maybe you and I have a very strong practice in some ways that other people are still like, you know, more novice to, you know, it's like, everything in life is practice, right? Like, I mean, I still walk away plenty of times being like, ugh, you know, and then I have to remind myself, no, that's beautiful. Just like this moment we're in, like it is, there's so much suffering that's happening, but I also think there's so much opportunity. And I think if we stay focused on the suffering, that's where we fall into that vibration, and then we become a victim to what's happening around us. But if we take advantage of this moment, you know, I mean, just to give you a personal story, I was a college athlete and I had an injury and it took me out of college sports, and I was like, my life is over. And to me, in that moment in time, that was suffering, it was extreme suffering. I worked my entire life for something, and then I felt like it was taken away like this. But it led me to where I am today. And it's like, we are all in this like little like this pot of cultivation, the birthing canal, you know. I mean, a baby being birthed is like traumatic, right? But then all of a sudden you've got this beautiful life experience and this beautiful being that gets to give back, you know, in such an amazing way. And so I say it with love and compassion for what everybody is going through, and I challenge everybody to just stay focused on the beauty of the situation, and to know that you can navigate the challenging times. And every time you have a win, it's like you're really like redesigning your internal matrix. And so it's like, and every time you feel like you don't have a win, you're still redesigning your internal matrix. So to try to not like go this way and fall into any sort of self-judgment is going to be the greatest gift that we can all offer ourselves as we continue moving through this time.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, that was super, I feel like really important information for a lot of people to hear. So thank you so much. How can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, you can look me up online. So Dr. Michelle Wolford is my website. You'll probably post it, but it's just DrMichellewolford.com. They can always call my office. So that's, I don't know if you want me to share that information or.
I'll leave the number,
Okay.
or it's probably on your website, right?
Yeah, it's on my website, but they can call my office and my staff can, connect them in. And then I haven't ever really done a lot of social media. I do more, talks like this or public speaking events, but I'm going to definitely be challenging myself to doing more Facebook, videos and so forth, because just want to share as much information as I have to support people so they can continue to learn and grow and feel supported as they navigate the unknown into a more abundant space.
And your Facebook page is just Michelle Wolford, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Doctor, I just want to be sure to plug that because I know you've been posting a lot of recent videos.
Okay.
Lately.
Yeah.
Doctor in front of it.
I think it does.
And I'm going
the doctors.
And then I just want to make sure for you guys to go to her page because she's been posting a lot of amazing videos lately. And then and maybe even just perhaps the website so that you can get on her email list because I know you've you did like a bunch of videos and then you consolidated them all into like one newsletter, which was super helpful. So
I did. Yep. And then I also actually posted the link to that MailChimp. So I think anybody can access that from Facebook, and I made it a public thing so they can share it, send it. I've posted the videos on YouTube. So most people have been watching them on Facebook, but a couple people on YouTube. So yeah, they should be there for everybody.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I love you.
Oh, I love you too. Thank you so much for having me, Summer. And yeah, thank you for all of your wonderful questions and your time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. Aloha.
Okay. Aloha.